Hi, my name is Lyle. I'm with About Face, Veterans Against the War. It was formerly Iraq Veterans Against the War until about a year ago. So I often tell a story about being in Afghanistan on a remote base with about 30 Marines and witnessing the leveling of a small corner of a village. And to this day, I still don't know why we leveled that village. I know people were hurt, people were most likely killed in the corner of this village. And I'll never stop hating myself for not doing something to stop it. But today I want to talk about the actual numbers involved in this event. I did some back of the envelope calculations before I got here, and I think this speaks to the larger problem that we find ourselves in. So the event started with about 3 Marines shooting back with their M4 rifles. Each M4 rifle is worth about $700, so that's a total of $2,100. Each round is worth about 20 cents. Conservatively, if only 25 rounds were shot, that's an additional $5. After that, the Marines moved to what's called a 249 small machine gun. The machine gun is worth about $4,000. It shoots the same rounds as the M4 rifle, so you end up with an additional $40 when you talk about rounds. Next, they moved to the 240 Golf machine gun, which is a medium-sized machine gun, which is worth about $6,600. It fires 7.62 millimeter rounds, which are larger than the 5.56 rounds. They fired about 200 of them. That's another $40. Then they moved to what's called a Mark 19 grenade launcher, which is a machine gun that fires grenades at the rapid rate. It's a very powerful weapon. The grenade launcher is worth about $14,000, and each round, each 40 millimeter grenade is worth $50. So that's an additional $2,000. Next, I saw a Marine unleash what's called an AT-4 rocket launcher. It's an anti-tank rocket launcher. It's worth $1,500, and once you use it, you can never use it again. It's a one-use disposable weapon. After that, I saw 2 Marines set up what's called a Javelin missile launcher. It's placed on the shoulder of a Marine, and then you have another Marine serving as a spotter. This weapon system is particularly expensive. It's $126,000, and each missile is $100,000. And I watched as one of these missiles was unleashed into the distance, and I watched the impact. The finale, and I use that word deliberately because for many of us, and I have to say myself included, this was an act of revenge. It was also a form of entertainment to some degree, which is something that most veterans aren't willing to admit, but I am. That's an awful part of war, is the way that you start enjoying it to some degree. The tow missile is worth, there's different estimations, but the one that seemed the most legitimate was $180,000. So all these combined is $436,000, but that's not the entire cost. The entry-level training, that costs money as well. It's about $50,000 each Marine that was involved in this event. The vehicle that was sitting on the corner of our base that the tow missile was attached to or mounted to is about $300,000. The upkeep on the remote outpost that we were on, it costs, I don't know exactly, but probably thousands of dollars each day just to maintain the base. And then, of course, there's the human cost. Before I get to the human costs, I want to cite a statistic from the Watson Institute for International Public Affairs here at Brown University. They estimate that over $1 trillion have been wasted on the war in Afghanistan alone, and approaching $5 trillion on the war on terror as a whole since 9/11. My own experience very much speaks to that. In fact, this whole thing I just talked about lasted about an hour. I think you get an idea of how we end up getting to $1 trillion. But I want to talk about the human cost. The Watson Institute estimates that over 100,000 people have been killed in the Afghanistan war, and we're approaching another 100,000 people on the other side of the border in Pakistan. So that's a total of almost 200,000 just in the Afghanistan-Pakistan war. If you add the Iraq war, what's happening in Syria, what happened in Libya, what happened, the drone wars in Somalia and Yemen, you're approaching well over 500,000, probably over 1 million at this point. People dead because of our wars. And and in Afghanistan alone, you're talking about an additional 100,000 wounded. A lot of times when we talk about casualties, we just talk about the dead. And if we do talk about the wounded, we usually only talk about the veterans coming home that are wounded. We don't talk about all the people that are walking around without limbs, without sight, without half their face in the countries that we bomb and destroy on a regular basis. You're talking about billions in healthcare costs here in the United States, another billions in Afghanistan and other countries we fought in. You're talking about billions in infrastructure costs. That's another thing we don't talk about. We destroy entire infrastructures. We destroy their roads, we destroy their hospitals, we destroy their schools, we destroy their community centers, their sites of worship. So the only point I'm going to emphasize is that these wars are not only costly, they're immoral. It's not just about saving money, as everyone here knows. It's about saving, to some degree, our souls. And I'll leave it at that.